Yo, what's going on, you guys? It's your boy 3 Stacks in this thing, baby, representing TKOG. And today I got a really cool and very fun deck to showcase you guys. So it's Magical Musketeers. Funny little story about this. I took it, so I got second place with this when I took it to locals for the second time. Because the first time I took it, I actually had left my cards at my bro's house. So all my decks, my trade binder, my staples were gone. I still went to go to local, so I looked in my closet and I grabbed the deck box and it had my muskets in it. But they had a 5-card extra deck. I had no side deck. And the only cards in my deck that were not Magical Musketeer cards was literally Archfiend Eccentrics and Ties of the Brethren. So I had to play 3 Dancing Needles, 3 Crooked Crowns. You know, I basically had to play duplicates just to make the deck 40 so I could go to play at that tournament. And I still ended up I think I went 2-2 that day. I lost to decks that weren't even meta, but I beat the meta decks I played. Actually, the first deck that I played with that deck was Bird Up. And when I had beat him, I was like, there's no way. I was not even expecting to win today because obviously I was ill-equipped. I had nothing generic to help me. I was like, dude, I just literally beat one of the best decks in the format with only musket cards. I was like, oh my goodness. Imagine if I had this deck built the way I normally play it. So that's when it dawned on me. I was like, I'm coming back to locals with my Musketeers, but this time I'm going to have them built right with a full extra deck and a side deck. Then I got second place. And bro, when I say this deck is really like Poor Man's Sky Strikers. It definitively doesn't have bad matchups. And there's not really a bad format because you have so many different musket cards that similar to Strikers, it's very adaptable to formats. Like Dancing Needles right now in this format overperforms, but other formats, Dancing Needles not as good. And sometimes Last Stand's not good, you know? But for the most part, that's what I compare it to. It's like Poor Man's Sky Strikers. You can blind second with this deck just like you can with Strikers, and you can break virtually almost every single board that's being made. Just the nature of activating the musket cards and them being negated and then resolving max to get those cards back and activate them again since your opponent negated the activation makes it really easy to break boards with this deck. So I blind second against everybody. As far as matchup go, my throat is getting sore. Sorry if it bothers you that I'm clearing my throat. But yeah, so my matchups were 2 Sword Souls, 1 Virtual World, 1 Flunderies, 1 Dogmatika Invoke Shadalls, and no, it's 2 Sword Soul, Virtual World, Flunderies, yeah, and Dogmatika. So yeah, 2 Sword Soul, 1 Virtual World, 1 Flunderies, and 1 Dogmatika Invoke Shadall. I played no Rogue, only meta. I only lost to my friend Oscar, which was one of the 2 Sword Soul people I played against. Our game was really weird. We both didn't draw a starter for the first 2 or 3 turns. Then he activated Fusion Destiny, and I was like, dang, so he still bricked. He just drew Fusion Destiny, because we were passing. I had a hand that was incredible if I had a musket in it, because I had their spells and traps, but not the monster. And by the time I drew a monster, he had DP up, and he was already playing the game before I got a chance to play. So I lost game 1. Game 2, I mined him. And instead of waiting until he draws an out, I decided to put enough monsters on the field for his DPE to be able to out the mine. Because basically I was like, well, I'm not going to beat him like this. You feel me? I'm going to give the respect that's due because I actually think he's a good player. And I was like, there's no way. I'm not about to force him to draw the out. I'm just going to, let's just play Yu-Gi-Oh! So I was being nice. I didn't really have to. But at the same time, when I took this deck, I wasn't taking it to win. I really always go to locals to have fun. The only time I want to win is if there's something that's high stakes involved, like a case tournament or a trophy or a win-a-mat. You know, something where I'm getting something besides packs. I'm not going to go sweaty over packs, bro, because the truth of the matter is, if I really needed a card, I could just buy it. So I was definitely trying to have fun there. So I wasn't really tripping. I knew that if I played that way that he would outmind with Enforcer because he literally would have the same number of monsters as me, but I wasn't tripping. So my only loss was I wasn't really caring about it. That was literally the only game where I didn't give it my all either because I was like, wait, I'm topping no matter what. I did what I came here to do. I played musket cards and I shot people with my guns, so I don't care. So I outed my own Mystic Mine, and he had a lot of hand traps. I kept playing, but he had so many hand traps because, you know, we were undermined, so he drew so many. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm just going to pass with the Last Stand in hand, and Last Stand's not doing anything to, his full field. And so I lost. But the other Sword Soul person I played against, I clapped him. I 2-0'd him. And I did go try hard on him because I just personally, that's a dude that goes to our locals that he's just really annoying. So whenever I play him, I make it my business to do the best that I can to beat him in the most dirty and grimy way. So I made him go first. I absolutely destroyed his turn 1 board with just musket cards. And some got negated, but I used Max to search the ones that got negated to activate them again. And then I resolved Nadir Servant. It was just crazy. Then game 2, I forgot what I did. I didn't Mystic Mine him. Oh yeah, no, game 2 he Protos to call lights. And I was like, bro, like I don't think people realize like so sorry, again, clearing my throat. I don't think people realize it, but like when you play this deck, you do not need a special summon and you don't need your extra deck. Literally. Like my Dogmatika cards gave me a higher ceiling against cards like Dragoon, so it's easier to out, but you don't even need those cards. Like Muskets truly can just play with their normal summon, literally, and do so much with just the normal. So he called Protos. He had Baron the Fleur and a set at Forbidden Chalice. He popped his Chi Shao to resolve Protos, so he ended on Protos, Fleur, Chalice, and Ash in hand, I believe. It was either Ash or Valor. And I still killed him. It was just insane. I was like, bro, like, I don't know why you thought you was doing something. Like, I don't need a special summon, bro. Like, that's why I beat Flunder, too, because the Berry statue didn't matter. He de-shifted me and put me under the Berry statue, and I'm like, my deck doesn't care about either one of those cards. I don't need my Grave unless I have Nadir Servant. That's the only time it matters. And I literally have Cross Dom and Desperado to deal with your Storm. I ended up popping it, of course, but I'm just saying, like, that's that's why, like, I feel like this deck has so many good matchups. Like, it has a great Sword Soul matchup. It's really good against Dogmatika and Invoke Shadalls, because even if they set up, like, for example, Kaliga, Double Winda, you can deal with both of those. You can deal with the first Winda, and the other thing is, like, you don't even need a special summon more than once. I could just resolve Max, and that's the only special summon I need. But, yeah, I beat the Dogmatika Invoke Shadalls player, because I actually have a really good matchup against that deck. Dancing Needles was crazy in that matchup. The Flunder matchup wasn't even a struggle. Virtual World was probably the most epic game I had. We went into turns, because I played him in top 8. We went into turns. Our game 1 literally was like 35 minutes. Game 2, we went into turns. He beat me game 1. It was crazy. I resolved Max for 5, like twice. I broke his board twice. He broke mine twice. And then he put up enough damage after that. I was like, dang, I just need to survive for a turn. He ended up killing me. Then game 2, I got him. Then game 3, we were going into turns. I went first. Yeah, no, I went first because he made me go. No. Actually, I didn't go first. He went first. He went first. He set up like Crystal Wing, Shinshin, Chuche. I broke his board. And then I attacked him, put him at 1,300 life points, summoned Baguska with Last Stand in hand to counter Droplets or Kowloon into Qinglong. And then I passed, and then he lost. So it was really good. The Muskets definitely performed extremely well. Like I said, I didn't come expecting to win. I was just trying to have fun, but I also knew that this deck was good. So I knew it wasn't like I was just going to basically scrub out, you know what I mean? You have a really good Flunder Sword Soul matchup. You have a really good Virtual World matchup. Really good Dogmatika Invoke Shadalls matchup. You have a good Bird Up matchup. With just pure Muskets, I beat Bird Up. And it was just the nature of how my cards interact. The only card that really mattered a lot of the time was the Utopic Future, because him negating and taking my Musket is like a big deal. But I still managed to prevail even against that deck. And your Drytron matchup can be hit or miss. If you open Dancing Needle, you can actually chain Dancing Needle when they discard Eva to banish the Eva, so it won't resolve on a separate chain. So the deck's designed to break the boards that the meta's putting up. That's why it's okay to blind second, and that's what I did. And sorry for the ramble if that's like annoying for you guys. But I'm gonna get into the profile, I promise. Please don't complain in the comments. So first and foremost, if you like my channel and you see yourself watching it again in the future, please consider subscribing. Make sure you click the notification bell if you do subscribe. Leave a like if you liked the video. Leave a dislike if you did. Leave a dislike if you're like, oh, you just talk so much. He just needs to shut up. I'm never watching him again. And if you want to become a member of my community, join my Discord. I also recommend joining the Patreon because there's a lot of benefits that come with it. Tutoring, mentorship, theory crafting, building decks. I mean, there's just so much involved with it. And make sure that when you do join the Patreon, make sure that you connect your Patreon to my Discord. There's an option online to do that. And then the Discord will automatically, when you join it, you will join and be entered in the tier channel, because I have 3 different channels that are tier 1, 2, and 3 exclusively for the Patreon. And once you're in there, you'll be able to communicate with me on Discord. Because if you try messaging me on Patreon, I don't get notifications. So a week could pass by and I won't even know that you hit me up saying, hey, I'm trying to get my session in. So hit me up on Discord. That's the best way. So let's get started. So here's the list, you guys. So we got second place with this list. So 3 prosperities. The only thing that I don't like is not being able to Utopia the double people for 10,000 after I crossed on, but I'm okay with it because the card's just too good. Because originally I wanted to play Fusion Destiny in this deck, so I knew Prosperity would be better than Desire for multiple reasons. Banishing the targets for Nadir and Fusion Destiny is bad, and then also Prosperity gives me a better RNG to see those 6 cards, because I felt like if I opened a Musket with Fusion Destiny and Nadir Servant, it was like the best opening. No, literally, actually the best opening is a Musket plus Parallel Exceed, Nadir, and Fusion Destiny, because you end on Dweller, DPE with Schism access. It's just ridiculous. More starters, 3 Starfires, 3 Caspars, 3 Kid Brave, 2 Dogs, 1 Calamity, and 1 Wild. The reason why all the Muskets are starters is because I blind second. That means these are all 1 card plus 5s potentially because of max. So that's another reason why I blind second with this deck, because I feel like your cards are better designed at breaking boards than preventing them from happening. And also, when you go second, you have a higher ceiling. And in addition to that, you get the ability to regenerate the resources that you use trying to break your opponent's board through max. So, ideally, you do something like this. Cross Dom, Desperado, Dancing Needles, they get negated. Summon max, search more of those. Since the activation was negated, you can activate them again. It's one of the most annoying things that I felt personally I was doing to my opponents, where they're like, bro, like, this feels like cheating. Like, when I resolved max for 5 against a virtual world player, the people around me that were watching were like, that's just crazy. That doesn't even make sense. And then we have 3 Parallel Exceed. This is the Chain Block max going second, because this, normally I play Eagle Boosters, because I like Eagle Booster to protect max, but this not only does a similar thing where you could Chain Block max instead, which makes it even harder to deal with them. Like, if you Chain Block them versus Eagle Booster, it's like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's easier to still have a response. But with Parallel Exceed, you protect max, and you simultaneously can put out Utopia the double and one-shot your opponent. Or going first, you just summon like Baguska or Dweller. And the other thing is too, it's 2 extra bodies, so you can go like Nightmare Phoenix to pop a back row, summon Ningirsu, activate Ningirsu's effect, chain Desperado, pop a card, and then send Desperado as one of the cards from your field and one of theirs. I did that a lot with Ningirsu. I would summon him, declare effect, chain Cross Dom or Desperado from hand, and then send those so I don't lose any cards off Ning. It's kind of like activating Droplets, paying cost with cards that are already on the field, like activate Prosperity, chain Droplets. That's like how Ningirsu works with the Magical Musket cards. Yeah, but Exceed's really, really good. Moving forward, I would still play it. And then my Dogmatikas, I just played one of each of these. Nadir was like the main focus of the deck. Like, the only thing I would play more of is Ecclesias, but it's totally fine. Like, the Dogmatika cards were icing on the cake. They weren't the main focus of the deck. The main focus is the Muskets. I just wanted to be able to like out Dragoon and have more offensive pressure past my normal summon. Nadir gives you so much pressure without your normal summon. It really matters. And then my deck truly doesn't have like a definitive win condition. So that's why I played Maximus, because I played Schism and it worked out. Like, man, the people that I summoned Winda against, they just never saw it coming. Well, they saw it coming once I summoned Max, I feel like. But 3 Droplets, 3 talents. If you don't blind second, you should not play talents, because this deck just can't be hand trapped going first. That's another cool thing is like, even though I played Nadir Servants and Parallel Exceed, the Musket as an archetype, Magical Muskets really can't be hand trapped when you go first, because you really don't normally play any cards. Like, sure, like if you play like Desires and Caspars column, like, yeah, then your opponent might be able to interact with you, but Talents is just not reliable enough going first. You know, it doesn't really do anything truly for you, but going second, that's where it's going to perform extremely well. Because, again, like I said, your deck can struggle with Dragoon because all of your guns target or destroy as far as interacting with monsters. So, like, Droplets and Talents are how you out cards like Dragoon. They also help you to trade even better with DPE, because DPE is pretty crazy against this deck. it forces you to always have a negation for him every turn. So, oh yeah, and that's another thing that makes this deck even cooler is that you have an archetype specific out to DPE, to Drytron follow-ups, Virtual World follow-ups, bird ups. Someone activates Fractal and dumps 3. You can just still Dancing Needle to 3 targets. It's really cool. Especially when they summon War in the bird up matchup. Like when they go Fractal, send the Sparrow. They reveal War, summon it. Well, not reveal because it's like Cyber Dragon. You just summon it, declare effect. You can just chain Dancing Needle. They can still summon from hand, but if you hit the target that matters, it forces them to have a second copy of it in hand. Otherwise, the combo, they have to do extra steps now. Speaking of Cross Doms, this card's so good. Cross Dom is so good, you guys. So, even though these cards are like all outs to like Winda, they either out Schism or they out Winda directly. Cross Dom outs Winda. Desperado and Last Stand out Schism, and cards like Shaddoll Fusion. This negates them. Even though it does that, this deck doesn't care about Winda because you only truly need, and I mean need in only certain scenarios. The only times you really need to special summon is just max. So you can just do one summon and just not care. Like I did that to my homie Joaquin because he was playing Dogmatika Invoked with Fusion Enforcer and the Schism package. And he like I kept trying to force him to summon Winda on purpose, and like he knew better, so he literally just like ended up summoning Winda after like the battle phase and main phase 2, just like to summon her at that point. But like truly, this deck, like when you pop off, Winda sometimes matter, but even then you have an out to her. Like you have like 9 cards that you can draw, actually 10, because you can chain Dancing Needles to Schism and banish the targets from grave. If they're playing the Schism package, that's the only way that they're going to summon Winda is by banishing the Titaniclad and the Opclone that they send off Maximus. But once people see what I'm playing, they stop using Maximus, so then they can't really access the Schism the way that they normally do. But yeah, these cards are all really, really good. Cross Dom is just crazy. I like this card a lot. I think this card is just gas. I really like my Dryden. This is Calamity's gun. That's Kid Brave's gun. That's Wild's gun. The Dancing Needle is not really like a gun, but this is Starfire's weapon. Crooked Crown belongs to Zachiel. I'm not playing Steady Hands. That belongs to Doc. And right now, I'm not playing Fiendish Deal, which belongs to Caspar. But I think because of how many times I saw DPE, I might start playing Fiendish Deal again. Because once I get it online, DPE just doesn't do anything to my deck anymore. So moving forward, I'm going to start playing Fiendish Deal. So that now, like, I just don't care about DPE at all. And I don't care that if I can't out Dragoon, he's not going to pop all my muskets, you know. So these cards are all really good. And what makes this deck really the closest thing that you can call broken, but this deck's still not broken, is just a good deck. That's why I compared it to Strikers, because Strikers is fair, but they're still good. Is you can use these every turn. Like, once you set up Caspar and Doc in rotation, you get to Cross Dom, Desperado, and Last Stand your opponent every single turn. Because you'll always start with one of them, and Caspar will search the second, and Doc will at the third. And you do that every turn on your turn and your opponent's turn. So, like, if your opponent is able to play through them, they normally can't kill you. And that means every turn you're keeping consistent pressure. It's not offensive pressure, it's defensive pressure. Your offensive pressure comes from, I'm going to kill you cards like Max and the Dogmatika cards. But that's another way that this deck can keep the field clear, because your muskets are little. So you can't really kill people unless they like play into Utopia the Double, or you have Nadir Servant access to get like Fleur de Lis and put like 5k on board. But these cards are just really good for that other reason. Like, they're super recurable off of Caspar and Dot and Max when you're going second. When these cards do get negated, you just add more and activate them again. Crooked Crown. And the other thing to note is that these cards protect your normal summon. Like, if your opponent has Chuchi, you pop it with Desperado. If your opponent wants to Schism summon Construct to send your musket from the field, you can chain Last Stand or Desperado. If your opponent has like Dragon Maid Tidy, Last Stand protects it. I hope you guys are getting it. They have DPE, that threatens your normal, Cross Dom protects it. So even if you don't draw them, it's the fact that your main deck is kind of like a side deck, being that the main weakness you have, your own archetype specific cards protect you from that. And like I said, Dancing Needles, for me, definitely overperformed. The card was just really good. This was like MVP. This card outed DPE. I Dancing Needled Virtual Worlds 3 times. I banished all the Qinglongs, Nian Yan's follow-ups off of Fusion Destiny. Card's just nuts. Your Drytron matchup, like you can search this on their turn, and like when they tribute Benton with like a name engraved, you just chain Dancing Needles. It's like resolving Cycle Reader. Card's just really, really good. Triple DD Crow, you guys. Like, it's amazing. it gives this deck like an even stronger toolbox to be able to manage other matchups better. Like you don't really care about Flunder, so it's not really like certain decks like Flunderies and Sword Souls. You just can cite this card out. Like it's okay. It's okay if you hit like Tinnies, but it's not really like as impactful. But the other thing too is like you don't really need to end those decks' turn because the boards that they make, you just break them anyway. So you don't really go first against those decks. Those decks you want to go second, especially Sword Soul, because their boards aren't that strong, and you can always just resolve max against them. And Sudden Shift doesn't stop you because you can pretty much have Last Stand almost every time because it's so searchable. It's just crazy. Honestly, like this deck is pretty crazy against Sword Soul. Unfortunately, my loss to Sword Soul was like really weird. I didn't draw Musket, and then I turned off my own Mystic Mind, but the other Sword Soul player I play against, I opened Musket cards, a good hand. I opened Musket cards, monsters, spells, and traps, and the Deer Servant. Actually, and I triple tactics talent him in the same turn, cause he Chi-Shelled me. No, he Baroness defleured me. Cause game 1 he opened Fleur, Chi-Shell, Shift, and Dragite, and I broke that board. I talenced him. Look at his hand. Ripped his Ash. He had Ash, Valor. No, he had Ash. He had Ash because she shelled. But yeah, it was just crazy. I'm not gonna lie, that was crazy. These are the last cards in the deck. These are all like exclusive one-ups for certain scenarios. This is like for Ecclesia to have follow-up and interruption. Schism. This is the only win condition that like I can win the duel outright just by activating this. Well, these two are like my only win conditions. I either Utopia the W or Schism for Winda. And if not, I'm just going to keep activating Cross Dom, Last Stand, Dancing Needles every turn until you can't play through them, basically. Extra deck, the Shaddolls, the Titiniclad, the Elder, Omega, Baguska Dweller. I want to play DPE. I'm still working on getting my package, but the only thing I would probably have to change is I would have to cut Baguska to make room for Verde Anaconda. I already have room for DPE, but yeah, my extra deck's also incomplete because the day I took my muskets, I borrowed the Utopia the Double extra deck package and the Access Code Talker. And then I played Phoenix and Ningirsu. I was using Ningirsu a lot because like this is another way to deal with Dragoon. So like, because the other thing too is like if they're playing Dragoon in a deck that spells or traps and you go max Chainlink to Exceed, because I go max to summon every time. That's the only way you could out Dragoon. Your spells and traps can't do it for you. If you have like Starfire and other spells and traps, then you can just use max to search Crooked Crown and then summon Starfire, then trigger her effect, and that's another way to like snowball. But max Parallel XE to special summon is crazy. You go into Ningirsu after you like Link Phoenix, declare Ning, chain a musket card. It's really good. Oh, another thing too, because that's pretty much the deck profile. Another thing too is like if you don't open Starfire plus Cross Dom to Utopia to double your opponent, and you don't open Parallel XE, you can still do it with Caspar if you have like two. So this is how it works. Like if you have multiple cards that you can activate to trigger columns, you'll first trigger Caspar, activate anything, trigger Caspar, use Caspar's effect, search for Starfire. And then you link the Caspar off in the max, and then use max. Even if you can only max for one, you just search for Crooked Crown. Then you activate Crooked Crown, summon Starfire from hand, and then you trigger Starfire, summon level 4, and Utopia to double your opponent. And it works the other way around too, where Caspar can search this, and Max can just special summon her, and then you can just activate this from hand, trigger her, and you can still special another. In case you drew one of the level 4 targets, you can still summon another one. So like Caspar, basically like if you're going second and you have Caspar and multiple cards to activate, that's like the only combo per se. There's not really combos with this deck. You just play like a mid-range deck, but like Caspar and multiple activations get you so far ahead. Like this card is just really, really good. It depends. Sometimes opening her is better because her into him or him into her. But like her into him is easier to do versus like Caspar into Starfire and then like, but Caspar, I'm just saying like you can Utopia double your opponent even if you draw Caspar. I learned that playing this deck. I was like, oh snap, like I can literally like, and you could always search like missing pieces of the equation. If you play Zachiel, the level 8, you can search it off Caspar and use Max, Max to search the Crooked Crown. But if your opponent has spells or traps, you can just summon Zachiel. And Zachiel lets you draw like 3 cards every turn on your opponent's end phase when you do the loop of Cross Dom, Last Stand, Desperado, and recur them off of Caspar and Dot, then Zachiel just draw 3. That's where like this deck will literally outgrind even Sky Strikers. It's crazy. So yeah, that's the deck profile. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Thank you guys so much for watching. God bless you. Make good choices. Don't hurt your brain cells. Stay tuned for future content. And have a wonderful day. By the way, this is the third time I've recorded this video. The first time I recorded it, I opened my packs. I got 12 packs for getting second place. These were the hollows. The only secret I pulled was the worst one. I pulled 3 ultras though. The Boral or the Decode Link 3 or whatever. I think it's the Boral Link 3. The Flu Underease map, and then this guy right here. The rest was commons. But yeah, thank you guys again, and peace.